our biggest weakness is we doubt ourselves, and we're always just like, well, what if the readers don't get it, or what if this isn't working? And it's like, to get stuck in the mud wondering about all that is just stopping you from writing, and the problems are going to solve themselves if you just write. As in, you're either going to have a finished product you can edit, or you're just going to get better the more and more you work at it, and you're going to find your way through the problem.
This is the Crit RPG Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Lit RPG, progression fantasy, and Royal Road. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Crit RPG Podcast, the only podcast that can tell the difference between night and day. With me today is Alex Knight, who writes a bunch of cool stories, and now let me just get this right. The story you want to talk about today is Servant of Rage?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I didn't want to make you angry.
Well, we will not lean into the rage aspect too much.
Yeah.
Not yet, at least. That's for the end.
Well, then sell me your book.
Yeah, so Servant of Rage is a gritty progression light fantasy is what we're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of it as a good intro point for if you're into progression fantasy, or if you're curious about progression fantasy. It reads primarily like a fantasy, but it's got those progression elements in it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't care about all those buzzwords, the basic pitch is it's about brotherhood, it's about honor, and it's about discovering some sinister magic that might change the world and maybe has its own goal in mind that it's working to achieve behind this. No, never mind. That's all spoiler content.
Oh no, spoilers. Well, okay. We've already talked a little bit about your writing process and how you got into the entire thing before the main show started. You can find it on my Patreon if you're interested. I have at least 1 hour for every hour of podcast on there, which is basically just authors and myself rambling and making dumb jokes. And also, tidbits about writing and industry standards and that sort of stuff. Stuff that isn't interesting to readers. Thank you for letting me shell out here.
Oh,
but
please, it's your house. I'm just in it.
Well, I love to have you here. Now, tell me a little bit more about the why and how of that book.
So, Servant of Rage is actually the first book I ever wrote, which is a little bit weird considering it's now going to be the 10th or 11th one that I've published. So I originally wrote it way back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first thing I'd written, so I didn't come in with a very clear purpose with it. It was just kind of the story that I wanted to read. And I kind of went into it going, I want to write a story that's got like some really cool fight scenes and like some really heavy, weighty magic with big consequences. Along the way, my subconscious kind of came through and started putting some meaning into the story that I didn't intend. And I had the book in the back room gathering dust on the shelf, and thankfully Portal Books, who I've worked with for a lot of my stuff, was interested in essentially republishing it after all these years, because I had briefly self-pubbed it, but Portal wanted to do it right, so they came in and said, let's get you a proper cover, we're going to do heavy editing on it, give you a chance to basically reapproach the first book you ever wrote and make it what you want it to be now.
Cool.
Which was about the hardest writing experience I'd ever had. Just that many years of a book existing in your mind, kind of knowing what you want to do better and how you want to improve it. It was a lot of work, but I'm very happy with the finished product. And now I think it's both fun with weighty fight scenes and sinister magic, but also a little less heavy-handed with just beating the poor readers over the head with the random ideas my subconscious was spitting out. A little bit more subtlety now.
So I want to ask you so many questions. So, first off, you probably pantsed that book, right?
Yeah, pretty much. The first draft was definitely discovery writing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, then completely unrelated. Well, actually, no, that's not quite true. Not unrelated. Tell me more about this process of rewriting this book.
Yeah, so it was a blessing and a curse in every way, in that since I had self-pubbed it very briefly back in 2018, I had the luxury of a lot of reader feedback. So I knew what people liked, what they were resonating with, uh, what was perhaps heartbreaking in the book, what was perhaps too heartbreaking. So I had all that in my head for years now. Um, so the process of going back and rewriting it was essentially me going, let me just look at this whole narrative, think about what people responded to last time, what they didn't respond to, and I'm just going to kind of smooth over all the bumps. I'm gonna make the highs higher. We're gonna bring the lows back a little bit, um, and then also just approach it with the benefit of having now published 9 books since I wrote that. Just understanding the conventions of it a bit more. Of like, well, probably I shouldn't start the plot on page 1, word 1, with absolutely no build up whatsoever, and just throw people into it. Like maybe we need a chapter to get to know the characters, um, and maybe
What?
yeah, right. What a concept. Um, so yeah, it was very good to rewrite it, but it was also agonizing to
Mm.
one, go back to something I wrote so long ago. Two, bring it all up to snuff because I mean, no, I don't think a single sentence is untouched in the book, um,
Yeah.
and it's 115,000 words, like 300 something pages, so it's a fairly long book. It's not long
Mm.
by lit RPG standards. We're not
Mm.
talking a doorstop, but it was a fair bit of work to get it rewritten. And when you love something like that much, it was the first book I ever wrote, so I was
Mm.
very passionate about it. You want to do justice by it. So
Yeah.
I put way more effort than I probably should have into it.
My God. Have you? Okay, so like this resonates with me a lot because like I also like this one story. I have written a book before that has never seen the light of day, but it might at some point if I can get back into the groove. We talked about this. Now, this whole introduction thing is very kind of important um, because I also like basically start in the middle of the plot. Like one of the big hooks was like it's an in media res story, and we talked earlier about like trusting your readers. I think I trusted the readers a little bit too much
Mm,
by not giving enough information, kind of like shading information that just why not just give it to them, right?
sure.
Yeah, but what was your start like when you began this book?
I wasn't experienced enough. In a good
Mm,
way, I wasn't
mm,
experienced enough to even have thoughts like that. So I
mm,
wasn't thinking about what I was and wasn't giving to the readers.
mm.
Um, Sort of an ignorance is bliss situation, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, so I was really just writing for myself.
Mhm,
I was just kind of writing the scenes that I wanted to see, what I thought was fun.
mhm,
And I think there's a lot of value in that, and
mm,
not worrying about expectations, just doing what you're having fun with. Because I don't know how, but the readers can tell when you were having a good time. Like
mm.
when you were singing, the keyboard was flying, you were having a good time with whatever scene you were doing. They just know,
Yeah.
and I try to prioritize that now. I feel like it helps with doubts and anything that would kind of interrupt the flow. Just be like, just look, just focus on having a good time and enjoying what you're doing,
Mm,
and that seems to resonate best. So I think in a way I was lucky that I was only writing for myself at the time. There was
mm,
no considerations of, oh, what'll readers think? It was like
mm.
more of, can I even do this? Can I even finish a book?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and like doing anything for yourself is the best way of doing it. Now, uh, I hate I usually don't ask this kind of question because I feel it defeats the purpose of what I just
Oh,
said.
I'll
But
brace myself.
no, it's fine. But um, when you revised it, what like you obviously had to take the, my God, today I'm talking very fast. So when you revised it, you obviously had to take it apart at a very molecular level,
Hmm.
right? So what were some things that you found and you said, "Oh wow, what did I think here?" Beside, what was I thinking?
So, yeah, a lot of it was just inexperience.
Mm,
So, for instance, 2/3 through the book, we have a low point for our
mm,
characters. And at the time, I was just like, well, this is a low point. I need
mm,
to make it hurt.
mm,
Um, and I just didn't have an understanding of how much it needed to hurt. And
mm,
also, as we mentioned earlier, I wasn't confident enough to trust the reader to
mm,
really get it all the first time. So I kind of would repeat myself. And so there were like
mm,
2 chapters of the low point that when I finished it at the time, I was like, oh yeah, that was great. That really, they're really gonna
Mm.
feel that one. And then all the feedback on it was like, no, we got it. Like half of a chapter in, it didn't need to continue for an extra chapter and a half. That was everybody was like, the plot's
Yeah.
so fast, it's so action packed, and then it's just full break for 2 chapters of everything sucks.
Yeah.
So that was something I had to add a little more subtlety to draw it back a bit, and kind of
Yeah.
trust that the low point is more poignant when it just kind of hits all at once. You experience it, you're immersed in it,
Mm.
and then you move on from it. But the
Mm.
ghost of it still haunts you instead of
Mm.
just being like, no, 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 hold on, reader. I'm gonna keep beating you over the head with the fact that this sucks.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Try doing
yeah.
that for an entire book.
Oof.
I did that. Like at some point I had like these like ironically rage spirals. I think both you and we don't consider ourselves very angry people, but
Yeah, that's
we
fair.
love writing about rage. So um yeah, I just kept having these like rage spirals over and over again, and they completely annihilated any plot progress. So
Ah,
yeah.
that's not having fun while you write.
Oh no, I was in a very very bad place. I was very very angry at the time.
Hey, I wonder if it helped you through it at all. Kind of get it out on the page.
Well, what really helped me was getting fired.
Oh, interesting. Was that the source of it then? You were, was kind of
Nah, it
feeling it.
was. I recently talked with another colleague of mine, and like people will know about this company. I don't want to badmouth the company here, but it was a very very tough time, and I was not a good fit. And I am quite honest when I say that I think that the head of HR, I talked to him a lot about different other matters. I think he was really doing me a favor when he fired me, because I got a very nice settlement package, sometimes to myself, and I wasn't in this stress for so long anymore. And I don't think I would have been able to like change anything meaningful anyway. So that's a good point. So
That's a good
it
outcome.
helped though. The writing also did help. Also
Good.
did help. My goodness, I can word. So sorry.
No, that was interesting.
Mm. I
And
mean,
I'm
yeah.
glad you've come out the other side of it because that's
Yes.
a healthy step.
Have you ever done an office job like that?
I have, yeah, I did at a college I worked office job for about a year
Mm.
uh, before just that was actually when I wrote Servant of Rage, the first draft. I was in my
We're
office
seeing a
job.
pattern here.
Yeah. And I would work all day and then I would go home and I would pick up fast food on the way home, eat it in
Mm.
the car, change out of work clothes, and then go to the university library because
Mm.
even though I graduated for like a small donation, like
Mm.
literally $40 a year, you could be a friend of the library and still
Mm.
use it. And it was
Mm.
the only one that was open late. So I'd
Ah.
change, go to the
Mm.
library and write till like midnight, 1 a.m. each day.
Okay.
Just kind of grind it out. Um, there's an inspiration to be had in sitting in the office all day. I mean, like I really want to be working on my book right now, but I can't.
Oh God. Yeah. I wouldn't even be able to focus. I
It's
would
tough.
just, yeah. I was like, oh God, I want to be anywhere but here.
Hmm.
Well, anyway. So the other thing that you mentioned was the starts, right? The beginnings of books. And I've recently come to realize that, like, even in these in media res situation, you want to give people some sort of anchor, some sort of like reference point. Have you ever read any of the Locked Tomb trilogy, quintology?
No, I don't think I have.
Gideon the Ninth?
Okay, I'm familiar with it, but I've not read
Yeah. That book takes you and puts you in the deep end and doesn't care.
it.
Doesn't care. Like you have to piece everything together by context, through
Mhm.
context, and it is completely magical. But it is dense. Oh my God, is it ever dense?
And
Um,
strong character voice, I hear.
yeah. Also, the author just does whatever the fuck she wants. She wrote the second book in a mix of first person past and second person past, and most of it is in second person past.
That's choice.
Yeah. She like describes like you picked up the sword and the sword hated you to touch it. Such a good line, but I'm like, what the fridge am I reading here?
Right.
Yeah, and then like everything is kind of like introduced in like side episodes and everything, and I wanted to write something like that, and I think I
Interesting.
actually succeeded pretty well. But the problem is that Royal Road readers did not appreciate it at all.
They wanted it more straightforward.
Yeah, you were saying earlier that people like to not like to trust your audience, and I said I trusted them too much, and that was that, right?
Right. It's a
So
knife's edge.
I threw in a bunch of like world building that wasn't really pertinent to the thing in and of itself, but was pertinent to the
Right.
backstory it was developing at the same time. And people were like, "Wait, where are we? What's happening? What's going on?" So yeah, I think the audience matters a lot when you're writing these kind of books.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to. Like, I had a follow up question to this, but it eludes me now.
Well,
So
the
yeah,
discussion was too interesting.
yeah, it was good.
It's
Um,
I kind of feel like you have there's two kinds of authors you follow. There's
mm,
an author you follow because you know that they're writing the genre that you like, so you have
mm,
expectations that like if you read Joe Abercrombie, know that
mm.
it's going to be dark, it's going to be sarcastic and witty, and the characters probably aren't going to have happy endings.
Yeah.
So like that's why you read Abercrombie, right? But
Mm,
then there's the authors like
mm,
take Gideon the Ninth for example,
mm.
where they're just artists, and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm buckling up and I'm just going to trust the artistic vision. I
Yeah,
might hate it, I might love it, but like
yeah.
I'm here for the art.
It reads like eating a very thick protein bar of fever dreams. It
That's a
is,
wonderful description.
yeah. This is stuff I like. This is stuff like to write too. But the audience does not appreciate my greatness. No, no, no. So going back to it, I've had to make a distinction in my head, and maybe you can relate to this too. When I'm writing in media res, I'm not writing it as though the characters thinking to themselves, even if it's first person, but they're telling the story as though someone else is listening to it for the first time, right?
Okay.
So that will help you decide, hey, which information does the person actually need, the reader actually need, and so you can say like, hey, well, uh, I'd woken up in a place that I didn't remember going to sleep, and it definitely did not look like the fortress I was trying to besiege now, right? You don't need to say the name and then not give any more context, but you give the context, not the name. That sort of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
fun way to do it. You can play around with that too. Choosing which information to deliver and when.
yeah, yeah. And that's like that, I think it's like brown belt, black belt stuff, right?
It definitely is because I'm still working on that because
Mm.
my stuff tends to be a bit more straightforward. And I'm like, all right, let's work on a little bit of nuance here, a little bit of subtlety.
Yeah, and then you go overboard, and you have like three different stories all tied together with one system that all represent the same thing but viewed through different facets, and then you hate yourself because you committed to writing a trilogy and you just can't fucking get it done.
Too deep in the sauce. You
Very
went too
deep,
deep in the think tank.
very deep. But let's go back to your books, or your experience rather. What's the best advice you've ever gotten as a writer?
Hmm. So when I was struggling to be when I was an aspiring author, let's say, I was still working on my stuff. This was in 2014.
Mm,
It's funny he keeps coming up, but I was in San Diego for a summer working an internship,
mm,
and Comic Con obviously happens in San
mm,
Diego, and so Joe Abercrombie, hey, we're back to that guy.
mm,
He was on book tour in the U.S. And I saw he had a signing just down the street from where I was,
mm,
so I went to him, and I brought a couple books to get signed, and it was around the launch of one of his new ones. Um, and waited in the line, got to talk to him for a minute, and I was like, "What's like the best thing I can do to go from someone who wants to be an author to being an
mm,
author?" And he has my book in front of him, and he just puts in the top in big letters, "Shut up and write," and then he signs it, and I was like, "Okay, I got it. Message
mm,
received. I dig it." And I still it's off the shelf on the side here. And
mm,
I think that's the best advice is like our biggest weakness is we doubt ourselves and we're always just like,
mm,
well, what if the readers don't get it? Or what if this
mm,
isn't working? And it's like to get stuck in the mud wondering about all that
mm,
is just stopping you from writing. And the problems are going to solve themselves if you just write. As in, you're either going to have a finished product you can edit, or you're just going to get better the more and more you work at it, and you're going
mm.
to find your way through the problem.
And also, it's not going to, like, it doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
You can just write, and as long as it's fun, it's fine.
Hmm. It's
And
all
then yeah,
practice.
maybe you get published, maybe you don't. Like the only person you have to like stand uh, stand in judgment in front of is yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're going to be our harshest critics. We're always going to be abusing ourselves when
Mm.
realistically most people are like, oh, this is great. And we're like, oh, no, I see every flaw with it. I know everything that's wrong about it.
Mm. I don't know. Like who did I tell this to recently? I think it was Mechanimus. Just remember, you're not important enough for anyone to care.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and people who do care, people who get really angry, man, they love your story, but they
It's
really
true.
wanted it to be different. Or they're just having a bad day or indigestion. One of the three.
If nothing else though, you elicited emotion from them, and that's
Yeah.
really the focus of writing. As long as that emotion wasn't, oh my god, this is terrible, I want to get on a plane and beat this person to death with a baguette.
Yeah.
Definitely not referencing anything earlier.
No, absolutely, no. But I baguette it. Now the idea that I have for people who like very critical about your book is literally just posting that emperor gif underneath every one of those comments, like, yes, give in to your hatred.
Let the hate flow through you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's not much else you can do about it. It's a very, very clearly an emotional problem. They
Sure.
had a bad day, or they feel helpless. Maybe, I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah, I mean the long and short of it is if you don't enjoy a book, then that's okay. Like you're
Mm,
allowed to not enjoy it.
mm,
But just move on and find something you do enjoy because
mm.
we're all reading because we want to have fun. So don't stay in the part where you didn't have fun. Go find something that you're going to enjoy and focus on that.
There's a wonderful 5 second song that goes, "It's okay to not like things."
I think I've heard this.
Yeah, but you don't have to be a dick about it.
Pretty
It's
much, yeah.
okay to not like things. You don't have to be a dick about the things you don't like. that's that's it, right? Um, just today I was thinking about maybe making a Reddit bot that uses the power of AI to rephrase comments about like it was shit into stuff like I personally, it didn't hit my personal expectations.
Right.
Right.
Funny you mentioned that. I've been working on that internally where like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to ever judge another person's story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like if I didn't like it, instead of saying in my head, "Oh, they could have done this better," just go, "It
Yeah.
wasn't to my artistic taste. Like
Yeah.
it's not my kind of story."
Yeah.
Doesn't
Exactly.
mean it's bad. I mean, who am I to critique it? Like, and the truth is, I don't know anything. I'm just hitting the keyboard and trying to make stories that are competent. So I'm no
Yeah.
great authoritative voice on art,
Yeah. Well, I am so.
or at least the French version of you is.
Yeah. No, I don't even have a French version.
Mm.
I don't think I am legally allowed to. I think they would.
They're gonna come for you.
Yeah, they would come for me like not even with a baguette. That would be too merciful death for me. They would come with a croissant.
We can find a more painful way to do
Yeah,
this.
croissants
There you
for
go.
sure. Yeah. Or the guillotine. Yeah. Actually, that would wait. Like they made the guillotine because it's a very efficient way of murdering people.
Sure.
Yeah. But I'm not going to make that joke. That comes next. Anyway, the point being, yes, you also said just right, like 50% of all the authors on this podcast. But
that's the answer, huh?
it is a good answer. It is a good answer, like because in the end, you're not going to get better unless you do the thing.
Yep.
And Jimmy Carr, of all people, whom I get to admire more and more every day for his really hot takes, astonishingly hot and level-headed takes. He was being heckled at a show, and someone said, I don't know what it was, but he was like, "Hey, how do I get out of a dead end job like yours?" And I think they meant to like insult like how a comedian is a dead end job, but Jimmy Carr's up there wearing a suit that costs more than your car. So Jimmy said like, I don't know your situation, and I can't give you specific advice, but I can ask you generally the best question I can think of right now, or the best question in the world for me right now, and that is, if you could not fail, what would you do? What would you do if you couldn't fail? And then you go and do that, right?
Yeah.
So
about it.
Yeah, and like always be careful, right? So secure yourself against inevitable failure. But I personally like the idea of going into things fully expecting to fail and being completely okay with that.
Yeah.
Right. You get very good at failure,
but
and
you
also
continue more intelligently.
Yeah, I mean, like this podcast is doing all right, so I'm cool.
Yeah,
and I also have other stuff.
the rumored other stuff of which we cannot mention.
Yes, we cannot mention now.
Which I'm not in the know either for anybody watching and listening to this, so don't think I'm sharing the secret.
All will be revealed in time. Absolutely.
Can a team of has-been teen idols save the world? Find out in the new series Boy Bands and Dragons. When Neverboyland is sucked into a magical world, their reunion takes a back seat to staying alive. But if they can get over the past drama that drove them apart, they may find that even pop stars can be heroes. Come and discover your new favorite read, Our Comeback Tour is Slaying Monsters, the first in the Boy Bands and Dragons series by Kim Smuga Otto, dropping on Kindle Unlimited, October 25th.
Going to the next question, then, we talked about it a little bit more at the start. But if you could go back and change one thing about your earlier writing, what would you do? Or what's one thing that you learned that you now would do differently? And I mean, this is a trick question because you did that.
Sure. Well, I think I have a different answer than you might be expecting, which is to, I said that I didn't have reader expectation in mind when writing Servant of Rage. I think even still, I was influenced by kind of what I had read genre-wise, and I didn't let myself write as authentically as I wanted to, because even if I didn't have that much reader expectation, I still had almost my own expectation from what I had read up to that point. And I think it's easy when you're new into writing, you try to follow what you've already seen instead of trusting yourself, because it's hard to trust yourself. It's scary. And I think just trusting myself even more to just be like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to worry about the outcome of it all. And I think that manifests best in, I have Servant of Rage coming out, which is a gritty fantasy. And then following it in May, I have something completely different in a fantasy comedy. And I kind of spent a lot of my time as an author writing books that were intrinsically serious and heavy plots, and then making jokes and comedy out of side characters and throwaway lines and whatnot. But everybody said that, like, comedy doesn't sell, there's not a lot of money in it. I mean, look at Terry Pratchett. He's one of the most successful ever, and even he didn't make that much money compared to, some of the other authors that had just explosive series, despite a very long and lucrative career. So I let that stop me from writing who I was naturally, and I'm a pretty goofy dude for the most part, and so trusting myself enough to be like, I enjoy comedy, that's what I do naturally, I should write more of that. And I think you'll see that, one, in my future books coming out, but also I added into Servant of Rage more of that levity, and it's a lot of the feedback I've received is, we really need this. Like, it can't just be heavy the whole time. It can be heavy and intense and have consequences, but when you break that up with a little bit of levity, it adds a lot more to the mix.
Yeah. I mean, that's how Dungeon Crawler Carl does it.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, okay. Let's be
the
real.
other side of it. Yeah.
Again, Dungeon Crawler Carl is existentialism and an existential dread dressed up with funny cats. Right?
Laugh about it and try not to focus too much on the existential crisis.
Yeah, and if you speak Spanish, the first book is a very good indication of what the rest of the series is going to be, because it's gruesome, but it's hidden under a thin veneer of haha, what is happening. Kind of like
I've
BoJack Horseman, really.
I yeah, I love when to watch readers experience it, and they'll
Mm.
talk about how funny it is, and then you'll see just like one commenter is just like, I can't see him through the screen, but I can just tell they have the 1,000-yard stare, and they're like, this book is dark.
Yeah. Oh
Laugh
God,
away the
yes.
pain.
Yeah. And there's always this like one Spanish guy who's like, I can still read it in my head.
Hey, that means it's a good story. It hits on multiple levels.
Man, that story, like uh, having knowing about the reputation of it, like Kaiju Battlefield Surgeon, which is a trip.
Mhm.
I can definitely see that, like, Dr. Carl has met them and trying to like write to market, and my God, does it ever work? But hopefully at some point in the future, maybe if he ever gets back to me, I will be able to like get him on the podcast and can ask him about it.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah. So
I know he's a busy guy. He's sold a couple books here and there, I think. So I'm sure his schedule's pretty full.
Oh yeah. Now he's doing pretty well. So wait, your answer to the previous question though was, so you would add more humor?
Or I would not stop myself from doing something just because it's not the most marketable, essentially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that works.
Because I mean, you think about Abercrombie, his stuff's plenty dark, but it's also really funny.
My God, yeah. Like in the first one he wrote, I forgot which one it was, what the name was in English. But
The
there's
Blade
this,
itself, I believe.
yeah, like this is the scene where this cripple and his
Yeah.
and his albino like help basically have to find the guy, and he's been murdered, and they're going into his house, and like everything has been demolished. Like there's axe wounds everywhere, like blood splattered all over the floor, and he goes like, well, how do you think he died? And the albino goes, poison.
I know the exact scene. It's absolutely, it just kills you. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, because it's so dry.
Mhm.
Like and the funniest thing was both of the characters laugh about it. Right? So it's a joke that is already made in the book. And I don't know why, but people don't do that often. Like I don't know why, but like everyone is always so cool in these books. You know, no one ever laughs at the jokes people make.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
I wonder if it's folks are just the authors are a little bit writing to expectation in a way. Like they don't want to feel like they're ruining the tone, the atmosphere of the story by allowing room for humor in there. But I think it well placed humor, it just adds to a story. It's always a net positive as long as I guess there's a distinction between laughing, having a joke that works in scene, and having a joke that's just for the readers. And it's harder to write jokes in scene than a fourth wall break that the readers will chuckle about.
Yeah, I guess. Like I don't know. Like the only examples I really come up with are kind of almost cruel. Like when like one character's like the butt of the joke and the others kind of laugh about him.
Sure.
But I mean, when you make humor like that or have humorous moments like that in real life, everyone laughs about them, including the person like included in them.
Sure.
For example, like easiest example probably He Fights with Monsters, because it's a very funny book at times. But like whenever they make a joke about like Rufus's family owning a school, right? Like everyone's taking shots, and I think it could be cool if Rufus was also like laughing along, right?
Right.
But maybe that at that point the joke kind of dies, so it's hard, really hard.
I think it depends on how you think about humor. A surprisingly relevant example. I play hockey in my free time, and for whatever reason yesterday, like my skates were on wrong or something, but like I off the opening face-off as a defenseman, I just like we dropped the puck. I'm not even involved in the play. I just immediately fell. Like no idea what happened. The play skates right around me and they score 5 seconds into the game,
Yeah.
and I got ribbed the whole game by my team for it. But like it's you understand it's not malicious. So when you play along with it, like it builds up into it and it becomes a bonding experience. And I think you got to be okay laughing at yourself of like, yeah, I know I'm one of the better players out here, but I definitely just face planted when the play was. I wasn't even involved. I was literally standing there, and I'm just like standing, boom, right on the ice. And I was like, I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea. Like, did someone just like look at me? I have no idea why I went down, but it was funny, and
they do
you
it
just
in
gotta laugh
soccer.
at it. We'll say again.
They do it in soccer. That's the wrong sport.
I feel like they would take it a little more seriously there. I don't know why.
In soccer?
I guess the grass isn't as slippery.
No, like okay, so there's this.
Oh, you're talking about like diving?
Yeah. In German we call it the Schwalbe, so the bird, the swallow.
Okay.
Right. When they kind of like someone looks at them wrong and they fall down, so that the referee like turns around because there's only one referee, and he turns around and sees this guy on the floor. He's like, well, obviously that guy has to have done something wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of funny sometimes. When
going for that call.
Yeah, totally.
We this complete tangent, not related to writing, but still spreading the story because it absolutely killed me. A couple weeks ago, we had a guy, no one near him. He's skating towards the wall, and he just falls down and plasters into the wall. And like everybody was concerned that he was hurt. And our ref comes over, and he looks at him, and he's like, "You all good?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he gets up, and he starts to walk away, and the ref just stares at him and goes, "Penalty on him." It was a tripping call, and the whole ring he's messing around. He didn't actually call a penalty, but it was just the combination of like everybody's like, "Oh my god, did he hurt himself?" And the ref's like, "You're good. All right, cool. Go to the penalty box." I saw you trip. I saw that trip. So.
There's I forgot his name, Max something. He's a British comedian, and he went to this soccer tournament for charity. He's actually pretty good at soccer. And so he starts, and he starts sliding around like an idiot, like he's like sliding everywhere. And then one guy comes up and like ref is like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's a yellow card, and he pulls out of his trousers like a Uno reverse card.
He set a trap.
Yeah, it was a whole setup. Millions of people watch that. Like he's really good at it. He also went into the Munich defense conference without being invited. He just snuck in and then filmed everyone. It was ironic because like the defense thing is not defended, so you just walk in.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Like heads of state there.
What a pesky troublemaker this guy is.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, he also bought a roundabout.
You're gonna start charging.
Put a statue of himself on it. Yeah,
I love it. See, this is the kind of shenanigans we need to have in our writing. Like, just you can be proficient at what you're doing, but you can have fun at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, big kind of spoilers for Cradle, but there's like one character at some point who gets bribed, and he has like the most ostentatious basically he comes in wearing like jewelry and like gold, riding a flaming horse made of dream stuff, and it's like, has he been bribed? It's like, no, of course not.
Wink wink.
Wink wink. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, like that's smart comedy though, right? Writing comedy on that level is very hard because not only do you have to set up the political situation, you also have to set up a character who understands the political situation to the point where they can actively make fun of it.
Right.
That is hard.
You remind me of a scene that I read a couple days ago. I was reading Django Wexler's book, Last Stop.
Django!
Yeah.
I invited him to come to the podcast. I hope he's coming on soon.
Oh, that'd be great. That's the first book I've read by him, but I'm going to have to go deeper into the back catalog now because that book was awesome. It's called Last Stop, kind of a sci-fi fantasy. The cover has World War II fighters fighting fighter planes taking on giant flying insects. So I was kind of hooked from the opening cover.
Yeah.
But there's a scene where there's like a veteran character and an inexperienced character, and they're basically getting shook down by like an official. And the veteran knows what's going on, and then the rookie's like, "Wait, I know what this is. He wants a bribe." And the main character's like, "Yes, but it's generally considered not polite to say it out loud." Just it's fun to have that character that calls out. Everybody knows what's happening, but you need that excitable character that's going to call it out, and it enhances the moment. I appreciate.
Oh wait, this is a shakedown.
Exactly. Yeah, and they're like excited about it, like, "Oh, it's my first shakedown."
Yeah, this is awesome. Like loses the appeal after the 50th time.
I'm sure.
Like, yeah. But yeah, like that stuff. That's also cool. In the band, which is which is my kind of like comedy sort of life, having fun story that I'm writing, which is also super bloody, but in a fun way. There's a character who's a succubus.
Okay.
And there's a character who is a vampire, but also a cat boy. It makes sense. And this vampire cat boy called Victor, he always makes references to like very cat things. So for example, he's like, yeah, no, then we have to like, get out there and like do all these like bureaucracy things and then come back, and that's a major hairball, right? So cat reference. And then one time he's like, I don't know, this doesn't feel right. Like it just kind of feels like licking against the grain. And then everyone's like, huh? Except for the succubus character, is like, yeah. And everyone stares at her.
It's about the implication.
Yeah. I love that kind of. Yeah, I love that stuff. Like, I hope this will actually work in that book. I'm not writing it right now. I'm just like writing all these jokes so that no one comes lynching me for not writing a Torchbearer. But I hope this works because it's very like sexual innuendo jokes because it's a succubus.
I mean, yeah. What do you expect?
Right? Yeah. And so like when the two main characters, one of them is a werewolf, the other one is a vampire and a cat boy, right? When they, like she walks in and they're talking about like the what's better, barbs or knots, and she's like walks in, goes like, "What the hell is happening?" And they like keep talking about it, and she goes like, "Well, they're both great, they both feel amazing," and they're like, "What are you talking about?" We're talking about like what to put on your whip if you like want to like kill people with it. It's like, oh, never mind.
Different wavelengths there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's
now,
fun.
like, yeah, I have several people, some clients actually who want to like write romance, and I have no idea how to get them into that thing, because like selling romance is even harder than selling lit RPG, and lit RPG is hard.
Sure. Romance is very crowded. I mean, lit RPG is crowded. Romance is more crowded and has been crowded for far longer. That's the big leagues right there.
Yeah, very crammed together. It gets very stuffy. Very close skin contact.
if you want to go far, at least.
Yeah. No, but totally. That being said, like writing romance, what I don't like about it is that it's so formulaic. And I think that's always a question I like to ask, mostly in the bonus material, but I'm going to ask it here now. Do you think lit RPG will ever become as formulaic?
I want to say I hope it doesn't, because part of what I appreciate so much about it is that it's totally original. It's a genre almost born of the readers themselves. I feel like so many of the early lit RPG authors are just like, yeah, I didn't see what I wanted, so I went and wrote it. So I hope that it doesn't become formulaic, because I know that I lean too far in this direction, but I'm more about following an artist because you appreciate their voice and the weird way they might think about things. So I'm more okay going into a story being like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm here for it. And I want people to chase that. I want people to follow authors because you're just interested in the crazy way they think about things. Because it really feels to me like every story's already been told. It just hasn't been told in your voice, essentially. And the voice is what makes it different and unique. So I guess it's an argument for and against it. I don't want to see too much formulaic stuff, but at the same time, as long as you do it in a unique fashion, kind of a new approach to it, it can still work because you get the tropes and the beats that a reader would expect. Just do it your way. Make it unique.
I mean, it's a Bible quote. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, it's fair.
I just Googled it. I had to Google it. So it's Ecclesiastes 1:9, whatever that means. I am not used to the English like Bible things.
Fair.
Yeah, like last week we had a very, very staunch Catholic on the show. That was very interesting conversation. So I highly recommend that one for sure.
There you go.
I mean, we've already talked about Abercrombie a lot, but what's one book that you love and why is it awesome?
I'm going to go with Ascendant by Michael R. Miller. If you've heard of it, it's doing pretty good out there. I really, and I'm not just saying this because he wrote me into it as a character. I'm going to get that out of the way first. See if y'all can find me in there.
I can one up you with that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But I think he struck a perfect balance between a familiar fantasy story while incorporating cultivation elements. And I think that is a path forward that a lot of us should be pursuing, where it appeals to traditional fantasy readers and it appeals to cultivation readers. And if you can bridge, audiences like that, I think you're just, without watering down either one, I think you're really, you're onto something there. And he managed to capture the vibes of like Aragon back in the day. So like I felt kind of nostalgic reading it, while at the same time it was fresh and new. And of course, the bad guy is a giant hive of intelligent insects that are horrific and fight in swarms. And I mean, who doesn't want dragon riders fighting Starship Trooper-esque swarms of giant bugs? Like, it's a good time.
Yeah, it's a programming story. No,
For
I mean,
sure.
this sounds awesome. Like, I'll be quite honest, I've never heard of Michael Miller before. Now
Yeah, you should. He writes mainly fantasy.
Yeah.
But that one is cultivation / kind of progression fantasy.
Pretty good. And he wrote you in as a character, you said?
Yeah. We've been friends for a while. He's one of the founders of Portal Books, who I published most of my books with. And so the long and short of it is, in his world, people's last names are what their job is. It's a very rigid society of like, if you are a cook, your name would be Jeff Cook. So there is a knight in the book named Alexander Knight.
Nice.
And he didn't tell me he was going to do that. And I just got to it, and I sent him I just like highlighted it and sent him a picture like question mark, and he's just like smiley face.
Man, that sounds great. Until your name is Christopher Dungshoveler.
Little harder to work that one in.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, in that world, like, I don't think there's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a very desirable job, I don't think. You might need to illegally change professions.
and you're like, my son, congratulations to coming to this world. I'm sure you will be a great heir to the Dung Shoveler name. And you're like, fuck.
Hey,
Can I re-roll, please?
The way he's got his world set up, every single role is like super important. So I don't know. Maybe the dung shovelers are absolutely essential here.
Hey, dung shoveling is a very, very important job, and I mean, like, if you're going with the Will Wright route, like, obviously, like, the greatest cleaner who ever lived is a very, very important person in that book.
Fair, yeah. And dung shoveling is just what I call it when I have a bad day at writing.
Oh, I call that fuck.
Yeah,
again,
that too. Try not to publicly broadcast that one too much, but there's a fair bit of swearing that goes on when you're just not clicking.
Yeah, I'm very European when it comes to swearing. I'm quite sure that like there's some sort of like YouTube algorithm that like downranks me for all the swear words I have on this podcast. But as the Spanish say, no quiero, I don't care. I'm quite sure that's how that translates.
Yeah. I'm with you there too. I just try to censor when I'm on streams and stuff because I'm like, man, I don't know how the algorithm's gonna respond. I don't know the legalities of it, so we're just gonna like self-edit here.
I completely hate. Now this is very, very European of me. but I completely hate that we let an European, an American algorithm shape our entire language. I hate it. Have you
Sure.
noticed that recently people have like censored the words like sex by writing like
Yeah. From
asterisk
TikTok,
X,
essentially.
yeah, and like kill? I'm like,
Mhm.
why? Like, what is that going to do? And
Well,
mostly it's just because,
the
algorithm.
algorithm, yep. It's
Yeah.
censoring it. I realized that when I was making promo for Servant of Rage on TikTok. The tagline for the book for years has been kill an heir, claim their magic. And the whole concept, it's like the whole point of the book, right? Like people have magic, but if you kill them, you can take it. And I was like, oh crap, all of my advertising copy has the word kill front and center in it. I'm like, oh, TikTok's going to hate that. That's not good.
And I don't know, but unalive an heir doesn't have the same ring to it.
It does not have the same ring. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, I had a question in chat today. A person asked me about how to write climaxes for your books and how important they are. And they were like, hey, did you see my question? And I scrolled back and I'm like, no, I didn't see any question. And they're like, all right, I just resent it. And it was being censored because it had the word climax in it. Chat was not letting, or the chat censor was not letting it through. So they had to DM me the question so I could actually answer it. And I was like, all right, that's a new one. I guess we're going to call them finales now.
And I hate that.
Yeah, it's
I
not
literally
ideal.
hate that because like go on TikTok and try writing the word Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, it's
right. And you're not being told that you've been censored. Right? You think you can say anything, but you can't. Oh, I hate that.
It's a two-edged sword because like I personally I don't want to be on social media. Like I'm terrible at it. I'm not comfortable with it, but it helps me sell books. So like I need to sell books, so I need to be there, but man, it's a crazy wild place. There's just some things you're good at, and that is something I am very bad at. So if y'all see me on social, please bear with me. I'm trying my best.
I mean, it's fine. I'm not great. Every time I do a post, like it usually does pretty well, except for like the podcast posts that I just stopped doing after a while. But yeah, basically what I do now is I let all the authors shout me out.
There you go.
Yeah,
lean on the network.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm good at. I like networking. I like meeting people. I like talking to them. And
you should host a podcast.
Yeah, what a good idea. I recommend everyone try the hand of networking. Except for my current job, all the jobs I ever got were through networking.
Powerful.
Yeah,
it's very powerful.
And everyone in the space is super approachable. You can literally like go to this. Like sometimes I go like, hey, people write me like, hey Max, I heard you're an agent. I'm like, yeah. And it's like, hey, can you introduce me to Portal Books, or can you introduce me to like Aethon or Timeless Wind? I'm like, you can just go to the Discord and write them. But of course, I obviously got to, hey, Red, this is like this person, this is that person, because A, if it's easier for them, of course, and B, I'm not gonna lie, like I like helping people.
Sure.
So yeah, why not?
Well, that's one of the great joys of our genres. Super approachable. I appreciate that. It's pretty wild that you can pop into most of the publishers' Discords and just be like at the author and literally talk to them. I see people come into the Portal Books Discord all the time and they'll just like ask a question in general. They'll put a question in like general chat, and then the author themselves will pop in and answer it. And it's like, where else can you get that? That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's this parasocial stuff that I really like. And I feel as though it becomes a bit tough when you're getting to like, I don't think I would ever like to be as famous as Matt.
Sure.
Or even Shirt. Because like I think Shirt does fine by not being very active on socials. But Matt, my God, this guy probably has like millions of foot pics. Yeah, he showed me his like email, his mail account on at DragonCon, to like underline that no, he wasn't ignoring me. He just, my mail just gets buried in like the 15 milliseconds per second, and at least 2 of them are like foot pics. Like
that's a level of fame. That's when you know you've made it, and it starts to become a burden.
Yeah. I am So I am the first one because like Matt Dinniman obviously is my great arc nemesis. We've talked about this on the podcast many times. I am now starting a movement to defeat Matt Dinniman.
No more feet pics for Matt.
No more feet pics. Yeah.
Maybe we should get that hashtag going. That'll be how we promo everything. Hashtag no more feet pics.
Hashtag no more feet pics. Yeah. Him and Haylock. But the Haylock thing, that's an inside joke.
I didn't know that people were sending Matt all that stuff. That's new fear unlocked.
It's like I said, like I mean, I'm flirting with fame. Like my face is on the internet a lot for someone who doesn't want to be famous. But I've recently realized, like, hey, look, that ego man doesn't really do anything. And also, I hate that feeling of being. I think Seth Meyers once called it. It's like being senile in a very small town. Everyone knows you, and you don't remember them.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
My wife is a lot more. She's a professional. Well, she does science communication for her job, so she frequently works with scientists and basically translates what they're doing and why it's important to the masses. But she is very good at social, and she has quite a large following. And it's pretty crazy now. We go places, and she gets recognized from social media. And I'm always just in that moment. I'm kind of glad. I'm like, man, I'm glad that I'm just the plus one here because you got to be on. You can't be like, oh, I look a little scruffy today. It's like if you're going somewhere and people might just straight up recognize you from following you online, you gotta be on. You gotta be on your game.
Yeah, totally.
Be scruffy and lazy.
I mean, that's like why Pirate Alba isn't public about their personality or who they are. Because A, it's part of the thing now, and B, they quite openly said, like, hey, look, I don't want to go to a con. And like I want to write books and be open about writing, and that's a persona, that's fine. But I don't want to be reduced to that in real life. I want to have weaknesses, I want to have vulnerabilities, and I completely understand that. And I once talked to Honore about it, and she also said, like, hey, Ray's not my real name, because I want to go to a con as me and not as Ray all the time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's value in that. And I got lucky early on that Alex Knight is a pen name. It's not that far off of my real name. But I didn't realize at the time how much of like a blessing that could be of like actually no, there's a distinction between my professional name and my real, like my legal documents aren't the same. Not that this is an issue. I'm nowhere near famous enough for that. But yeah, I just didn't expect it at the time. And now that I'm further on in my career, I'm like, oh, it's actually a very nice distinction to have. I'll just put a wig on. I'll shave and put a wig on when I want to go to a con incognito.
Nice. Incognito?
There you go. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Write that one down for later.
Yeah, there you go. I got that. My full name, unfortunately, is tied to the Nuremberg trials.
That's not great. Yeah. That seems that's a weight.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I see it as a responsibility, right? Like my parents obviously didn't know about it, but like when you Google my name, it's my face, and next to it's a bunch of golden teeth in a black and white picture. I'm like, that's not great. So I kind of like try to keep like my real name kind of like out there. So I'm not even like, if I were to publish my book at any time in the future, I didn't even know what I would go for. I still like the idea of a pen name that I've made a while ago, but maybe I'll just do that. But we'll see.
Hey, I'll plus one for the pen name. I'm a huge fan of them.
Yeah. Why don't you do some shoutouts?
Oh boy, well, first off, I mean, I think I've mentioned them so much. I got to shout out to Portal Books. They're really what got me into this. They gave me my first break, you could say, and it's been a long, happy relationship with them. I love those guys. So they're a ton of fun. also got to shout out all the Portal authors. You know,
Hmm.
we're a relatively small group, but we're pretty tight knit. We're always chatting and helping each other out. So I appreciate the community you see there. Writing can be a lonely job, but
Hmm.
big shout out to if they got the Portal books name next to them. It's a fair bet that I'm a fan of them and we're friends. Let's just go with
Yeah.
that. There's too many to shout out all at once. Um, and
I
then
Yeah, I very, very much encourage people to like check out Brook and Portal in general. Recently, like just last week, Brook has given us an absolutely astonishingly good deal on one of our properties that we have signed. So I couldn't be more excited, and I really think that this, yeah, if you manage to get into that club, I think you're going to be good because it's
Portal,
hard.
I I appreciate immensely that Brook and Portal they're clearly fans of the genre. I mean that was
Mhm.
evident from day one. But they're not doing it for money. They're doing it to put good stories out there, and it's
Yeah,
very evident in how they do business at every stage. Like
yeah,
so as an author behind the scenes that's worked with Brook for years now, it's always been very clear that they are there for the authors and the readers.
yeah. And it's gotten to the point that actually some of our clients who are with Portal actually pay them money back.
Hmm. Really?
Like, yeah. I can't say who, but yeah, like we've got some clients with Portal, and they're like, no, we're gonna pay them 5%.
That is absolutely insane in the business world and a very good sign, I think.
Yeah, totally. I can highly recommend it. And before anyone asked, like, oh, the other publishers, no, the other publishers are also great. There's not a
Oh
single
yeah.
publisher I can't recommend. Well, there's one, but I'm not going to badmouth anyone on this podcast.
We have a very good community for the most part.
Yeah,
It's what
yeah,
makes lit RPG progression fantasy like it's a great community. I'm very having been in other sides of publishing over the years, like
mm.
we got something special here.
Yeah, totally. And we must stay ever vigilant. No, to be honest, like now, like I mean, this is rich coming from me, but like now the agents are coming in, right?
They are. They are.
Yeah, there's like literally like too much to sift through for all the publishers to like do their old model where it's like, hey, you could go on Railroad and you see what clicks, because like things shift too quickly.
Oh
And
yeah.
now agents are coming in, and let me just reiterate this: like, I am an agent, and I'm telling you, you do not need an agent in this space. You can just go to the fucking publishers. Pardon my French.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, if you want to go beyond, like if you want to go to trad, then you need people like me who do that. Or if you want to like do a comic or go to Hollywood or whatever.
There's a reason agents exist.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot of stuff that's handled that. I mean, hey,
yeah.
as an
Like,
author, I don't want to deal with that.
yeah, I talked to Red Bruno, owner of Aethon, like one of the co-owners of Aethon, and he's like, hey, you don't need an agent in this space. I'm like, yeah, right. And he's like, yeah, you also don't need a publisher,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I think that's like a really weird comment to make, until you realize what Church said. Like, he doesn't want to quote unquote waste his time, all the publicity, all that kind of stuff. That's why he has a publisher, right? And if you don't want to waste your time with like negotiating and like, I don't know, flying to LA or going around Berlin, like looking at different offices for stuff, or building your own like team to do your own comic, then yeah, that's what Drew and I are there for. So
Hey, I love it. That's hey, that's
yeah,
been my goal since day one. Is I just want to write.
exactly.
Unfortunately, I do actually have to sell books in order to continue to write. So,
Yeah, it kind of sucks.
but if you could just leave me at
Yeah.
the keyboard all day, that would be ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, more shoutouts.
Hmm. So many people. It's just a great community overall.
Hmm.
I guess if we're getting specific, the person I've been hanging out with and chatting, writing with every day the longest is GD Penman.
Mm-hmm.
They're not too big on social. They're bad at it like me. Sorry, Gray. It's true. We both flounder together on social while writing just an insane amount of books behind the
Mm-hmm.
scenes. So shout out to Gray. They write incredible stuff all
Savage
over the
Dominion.
place. Yeah, they co-wrote that one with Luke,
Mhm.
Luke Chmalenko. Feels like they're big enough. I don't even need to drop Luke's last name. We all know who Luke is.
Yeah.
Um, And then Gray writes as a ghostwriter as well for just so many things. Like they have so many books out there that they just legally can't claim credit for, in just a wild amount of genres. So Gray is the best author I know, and just frequently I'll be like, oh yeah, I had a great day today, like 3,000 words, and Gray's like 5,000. I do 5,000 a day. I'm like freaking machine.
Have you heard of the wonders of Sean Wilson?
I know there's always no matter how many words a day I'm impressed by, there's always someone else out there that's going more. And I'm just like, how is your brain not liquefied?
The one person I know who writes the most, even beyond Sean, is Pirate. Pirate literally like writes down. I think the record in like a week was like. I think their record in a week was like 150,000.
Okay,
yeah, they wrote like a novel, a book and a half in a week. But like they said like they would like calm down from that. But like yeah, totally. So they also have like editors and they just like write stuff down, and like someone else checks for all the continuity because, well, I spend most of my time going like, well, is that really congruent with that system?
Right. Yeah, it helps when you got a team, that's for sure.
Totally.
Some people are just better at writing fast. I mean, like I think I'm above average. I'll do 2,000 to 3,000 a day every day. That's sustainable for me.
That's very good.
But I know romance authors that are turning out 5, 6 a day on the regular, and it's just like, holy crap.
Yeah, but I think we can like talk more about that in the post show up on Patreon.
The nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, I mean, like I got to pay my editor. Like I'm not earning any money out of this. I'm paying more than 50 to $60 depending on my Patreon every month on this thing, but I got to pay my editor. Like that guy deserves money. So yeah,
it's true. We're nothing without the editors.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that brings this podcast to an end. Unless you're joining Patreon. Just saying. Okay, look. Thank you, everyone, for being here. You can support this not just by going to Patreon and subscribing, but you can also just follow, like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. You know the drill. Yeah. And that's it. With that being said and done, thank you all for being here. And I'll see you next time. And if you're on Patreon, the show goes on.